Welcome to Moderator Candidate Debates. I'm your moderator today, not running for moderator of the debate, Anne-Marie Mahoney, and I am joined by our two candidates, Michael Crowley and Mark Paolillo.
Good evening,
Welcome,
Anne-Marie.
gentlemen.
Thank you
We're
very
very
much.
pleased to have you
Good to see you
here.
as well.
We're looking forward to a very interesting discussion on the role of moderator. But before we get started, let me just lay out some of the ground rules. There will be no opening or closing statements. We want to spend all of our time on the topics and on the issues. I will be asking you questions. You will have 1 minute to answer each question. There will be timed when you hear a little ding, ding, ding. You're supposed to stop. If you would like to rebut or add some information, just give me a sign and you will have 30 seconds to do that. As we go through the topics, after you've answered the question, if you want to engage with each other, that's perfectly fine, and we'll give you the time to do that. I think that's all we need to know. I will be alternating, and we're doing ballot order, which happens to be alphabetical. So it's Mike first, and then Mark, and we'll just alternate back and forth on who starts. So our opening question, and first, Mike, you will be able to answer. What skills, experience, and ideas will you bring to the role of moderator?
So I bring a broad range of government experience. 10 years in a variety of positions in Belmont town government, almost 10 years on the warrant committee, that entire time, the town meeting. And that entire time being a real student of how town meeting operates. I've also got 6 years that I spent on the warrant committee, and I spent 4 years on the school committee, and I've been on a couple of other town committees. So I know how our town government works, I know how our town meeting works, and beyond that, I also have a breadth of other experience in government, including at the federal level and working with state and local officials. So I bring a set of perspectives to running for this campaign that is quite wide. Now, in terms of what some of my priorities are, I'm very interested in boosting participation in town meeting.
Okay, hold that thought. We'll give you an opportunity to share some of that with us a little bit later. Mark, your ideas, experience, and skills.
Well, thank you, Marie. I want to thank Belmont Media Center as well. The role of moderator is very important. It moderates and manages and leads town meeting, which is our legislative body, which is a vital component of our government here in town. Town meeting has the power of the purse, and it passes all our laws. I think that role requires someone who has the unique qualifications that I do. I have deep experience. I've been a town meeting member for over 30 years. I've served on the select board for 12, warrant committee for 6. I was the chair of the Financial Task Force 1, member of Financial Task Force 2. I've been on the Capital Budget Committee and a number of other committees in town. So I understand the issues that will come before town meeting in the future, the complex issues. And through that understanding, I will know what town meeting members need to be fully prepared to make a decision. Additionally, there's appointment authority. My role is on the select board for 12 years. I've appointed hundreds of individuals to committees as well. So I will bring to bear, in regards to those committee appointments, a more formal, visible process to the appointments to the warrant committee and to the capital budget committee.
Thank you. All right.
It's a quick minute, by the way.
It's a very quick minute, yes.
Quick minute, Mark.
Yeah, it's a quick minute. Yeah.
I think the exciting part about having you two gentlemen run for this office is that, as you've just articulated, you both are coming from a wealth of experience, both elected and appointed. So you know how the system works, which is great. Now, having said that, you both have served as town meeting members.
Yes.
The average town meeting member out there doesn't realize how much the moderator does behind the scenes to get ready for town meeting, the months and months of preparation that goes into, boom, here we are at town meeting. Can you describe how you would manage those months of preparation and engage all of the involved parties? And we'll start with you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you, Marie. So that's absolutely true. I have participated in a number of those planning meetings when I was chair of the select board. There are countless hours that are spent in planning for a town meeting. You have to understand the order of the articles, the scope of the articles, what information town meeting members need in order to understand what the content of those articles are. I would engage with all of the stakeholders, select board, of course, the chair of the select board is there, the school committee, the school administration, and then my idea is to form an advisory group, ad hoc advisory group of town meeting members from all the different precincts to also counsel and advise the town moderator in terms of the issues that they see coming forward at town meeting and what information they need in order to make a decision. But there are hours and hours of planning that go into planning town meeting. You don't just show up and pick who's next to speak.
No, not at all. Go ahead, Mike.
Completely agree with Mark on the hours and hours of preparation. This is something that I think we both know. Part of the preparation is the need to boost participation in town meeting. We've seen over the last few years a dramatic drop-off in participation. On this ballot alone, we have 10% of the seats are going
Open.
unfilled. They're
Right, Mike? Like 5 didn't do it?
10
10%,
seats,
yeah,
10
10
out of 102
Yeah.
seats are going unfilled. So the moderator has to be out working with the community and community groups for months in advance of any town meeting, encouraging people to run for town meeting member, talking up the importance of town meeting because we make so many important decisions at town meeting. And something else I've been talking about for a couple of years now is the need for a moderator's advisory committee that would be selected by town meeting members at precinct caucuses from each of the 8 precincts to work with me as moderator on the decision-making that takes place in planning for town meeting.
Okay, thank you. Let's keep on that theme. You both have talked about an advisory committee.
Yes.
You do have sort of slight differences in how you would approach it or how you would use those committees. Do you want to expand even more? And Mike, it's your turn to go ahead. Expand more on both how those advisors would be chosen and how you would use them to advise you.
Yeah. So the moderator traditionally, our predecessor, has consulted various people in preparing for town meeting and in carrying out the role of the moderator. But I think it's important to engage the community and let town meeting choose the members who will advise the moderator. Of course, the moderator would always be open to the advice of any town meeting member, but to work deeply with the moderator, and in my conception of how this would work is that this committee would operate under open meeting law, so we have full transparency about discussions involving improvement in town meeting, discussions involving and interviews with potential appointees to the moderator-appointed committees. These are all things that I think it's important to involve others in decision-making.
Mark?
Well, I mean, I think clearly from my point of view, I think my perspective is that it will likely be 2 members from each of the precincts. I think to have a caucus meeting, I guess they could choose. I would ask for volunteers and try to have a broad spectrum and broad political perspective in terms of who is on this advisory committee. It would be appointed by the moderator. And I think it's important that town meeting members, that advisory group, also work with their respective caucuses and precinct members to understand exactly what are the issues that are coming forward to town meeting. I think it's important as well for them to advise and counsel the moderator in terms of, are they getting the kind of information that they need? Are they getting the kind of information that they require as it relates to the operating budget in terms of the warrant committee presentation and warrant committee reports as well? So I think it's really beneficial now, and I think it's important for the future in order to do that. I agree with Mike in terms of participation. I think it's less than 10. I think it's 5 now. I think it's in the job description of the moderator to go out and recruit new town meeting members, maybe younger leaders within our community. I think one of the issues we need to think about is how we go about doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
It's all right, I'll give you another
Yeah.
chance, but thank
Sorry.
you.
Yeah.
No, that's fine.
If I could follow up, Anne
Yes,
Marie.
absolutely, go ahead.
I'm a big believer in participatory decision-making, and so having the moderator make all of the decisions about the various appointees to the town committees that the moderator appoints, about all of the rules and processes that take place at town meeting. And by the way, state law and bylaws govern this, and the moderator is the official who makes these decisions.
That's right.
But having an advisory committee that can participate in the decision-making.
Okay, I think the 30-second rebuttal is up, but
Okay.
thank you.
I really understand the point that you're making, Mike, about the advisory committee advising on appointments, I'm not quite there yet. What I would say is that what are the needs from the town meeting members' perspective in terms of what information they need, in terms of the warrant committee report, but I wouldn't seek, I mean, I think the moderator's role is to make appointments. I would listen to the counsel and advice of these ad hoc members, but I think ultimately it's the moderator's job to appoint. And it isn't a committee of 16 or 18 or whatever number you want to make, because I'm not certain you can really decide exactly who would participate.
Okay. Again,
I think it's important as well.
Yeah, that's the 30
Time's up,
seconds.
okay,
Yeah,
that's fine.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me just add that I think what both of you are describing is very interesting concepts. There are nuances to both of them. I think what, in a way, you're suggesting is to make more public what is already being done. I think past moderators have
That's right.
reached out, if they're making appointments to a particular committee, they're reaching out to the chair or to members of that committee to look for others. So you're kind of codifying, if I don't want to put words in your mouth, or as you say, making it maybe a more transparent.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's more visible on, the word transparent. I mean, I think town meeting members don't quite understand as much as they need to in terms of what goes in terms of preparation, the information that's needed. I think this advisory group can help on that. And I also think that the moderator role is to recruit and go out into the community. I mean, I would attend the precinct meetings. I perhaps have a public forum. I think a lot of folks in town, Mike, don't understand exactly what the time commitment is, particularly younger families. Right. And so I think we need to advise and sort of let them know what is the time commitment, how much time do you need? And I would also support continuing to advocate and support the use of hybrid meetings. The select board makes a decision on that, but I think hybrid meetings at some level, I love being there in person, are important and allow younger families, folks with physical, health issues or whatever, to attend in a different way.
Okay. Sure, Mike, go ahead.
The moderator absolutely has to engage with the community and work with people on stimulating interest in being a part of such an important institution within our town government. And I also have been talking up the need for moving to permanent hybrid town meeting for a couple of years now. Because this would allow participation by parents with kids at home or those with mobility problems, the elderly, people who are traveling for business. They all have voices that need to be a part of town meeting. We need to include them. And
I think I don't know if you mean full hybrid, Mike, but I think the times have changed. I know in my business, we participate with our clients in a very hybrid way as well. It's all through Zoom interviews, and I think you can be equally effective. And I think the reason that we have some vacancies, I think it's less than 10, last time I checked, but be that as it may, is that the time commitment. It's difficult for folks to be able to, if they have a young family, if they can't get to town meeting, perhaps they're traveling for business, but they want to be active in our town government. I think times have changed. Today, I think we have to allow for that hybrid type of approach.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. And we absolutely, there is a time commitment. There's just no doubt about that, but we absolutely have to work to involve the parents, the people who may not otherwise have time in town meeting.
Well, I agree with that, Mike,
of course.
Having
hybrid doesn't mean remote. It doesn't mean full remote. It means
engaging through a hybrid sort of format, right?
You have your in-person meeting. You also have people who can attend by remote.
Thank you.
I don't know whose time's up here, the minutes here, but
I know,
this is an interesting dynamic. But
yes. And you've jumped ahead to one of my questions, so I'm going to keep on this hybrid thing, because this is, I think,
right.
I think people are concerned about this, and there's a lot of talk about it, and we've had an evolution in town meeting over the last 5 years, driven by COVID initially, to go to fully remote and then, hybrid and then fully in person. So we've had all the different styles, let's say, in the last 5 years. I hear what you're saying about participation, but what are some of the downsides or the drawbacks or the challenges to the hybrid town meeting that we might need to consider more deeply? And I've completely lost track of who should start.
I mean, I think it's my turn here.
I think Mark gets to start first.
Okay, so I think you're right. Look, I love being at town meeting. I love being there in a physical way. I'm able to do that. The challenges are the folks that are participating in a hybrid way to ensure that they're equally engaged. We can do that through technology, and that they are fully engaged in the meeting. in my corporate role, I mean, we engage with our clients, through hybrid, through calls as well, and it's effective and productive. So the challenge, of course, is to ensure that those individuals that are participating in hybrid and choose to do that for the different reasons we've just discussed, that they're equally engaged in the meeting and don't feel as though they're somewhat remote. Right? That's the
Okay.
challenge, Anne Marie, to sort of have equal participation, to recognize them equally during these meetings. We're doing it on Monday, right? We're having a fully remote or hybrid meeting. And so
Fully
those
remote.
work, those
Fully
are
remote.
fully
Monday
remote,
is fully
not hybrid,
remote.
fully remote, excuse me. And so I have found those during the pandemic to be, as productive. So you have to engage. The moderator has to ensure that there's equal engagement from the folks in
Okay,
person
thank you.
and those that are participating through hybrid.
Okay, Mike.
So Mark is right. The technology, it's available so that we can do town meeting in a hybrid format that allows those who have to dial in over Zoom to be fully aware of, what's going on in the auditorium, how many people are in line. We can do this.
I think we absolutely can.
And we have shown since COVID began that we can work over Zoom. So whether it's fully remote, and I'm not saying we move to fully remote town meetings as a rule, of course not, but or hybrid. We know that this works, and I conducted a survey of town meeting members last year, and we found that most town meeting members, while people had different ideas about what format of hybrid to move forward with, most town meeting members that responded to the survey did agree that hybrid is something they would like to see in some form.
Would either of you set some parameters or some criteria for the hybrid? I think some people get concerned that I don't feel
50%
like
of the
going.
meeting won't show up.
I don't feel like going down the high school tonight.
Right.
I want to stay home in my sweats drinking wine. Should you set criteria? Should you just let it happen? Should there be a minimum or a maximum number of
I
town
think
meeting members on hybrid? And again, I think this is
yeah,
Mike's
that's Mike
question
first, I
to
think.
answer
Yeah, I
first.
used the last name.
So I am reluctant to set parameters. I do think that it's important to have some element of town meeting being an in-person meeting. And if we get to the point where most of town meeting is dialing in by Zoom, that's an important decision point. Do you move to all remote, or do you continue with a hybrid format? But I am completely open to working with a moderator's advisory committee to take a look at the issue of should we set parameters, and with the advice of the moderator's advisory committee, perhaps setting some parameters.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree with that. I mean, I think if you set parameters in the beginning, then you're going to limit the participation. I think you have to sort of test it out. I think you listen to your advisory group in terms of what level of participation. I do feel that most town meeting members, if they can, will come in person. I think most of the members that are there today. And so setting a limit, I know we debated this at the select board level, is challenging. What's the limit? What's the percentage? That's really difficult to do. If it starts to sort of gravitate towards more than 30 or 40% of town meeting members are dialing in and participating, and we don't feel as though the meeting is as effective as it could be, then I think you need to revisit it. But in the beginning, let's see what happens. I think most town meeting members, if they can be there, will be there.
Okay, interesting.
And,
Do you want to rebut? Go ahead.
No, it's not a rebuttal per se, but,
Okay,
but
or
I mean,
addition.
The benefit is that this helps modernize town meeting. Town meeting is, our representative town meeting is 99 years old, and much of it works, of course, but some,
1926.
some of
You
it,
got the date, Mike.
some of it isn't working. And when you're losing participation, I mean, it's not just that we don't have enough people running for town meeting. It's also that we're not getting all the members showing up when we have our town meeting.
You're right,
We're lucky
okay.
out of 288
Thank
elected
you.
members. Okay.
Thank you.
No, yeah, I think that's correct. And part of it, you also have to run a very efficient and effective town meeting as well. And so
Right.
sometimes the time commitment is more than folks can bear. And so that's part of the planning process as well. But you need 100 for a quorum, but that's nearly not enough to debate these issues. You need a more fuller participation. And so I think we both agree that moving forward in a hybrid way makes the most sense. Again, it's not the moderator's decision. It's the
It's
select
the select board,
and you need
exactly.
to sort of strongly
All right,
advocate
thank
for
you.
that.
Your 30 seconds
Yeah,
are up.
okay, my
Thank
30
you.
seconds are up.
On that same vein, though, and I'm jumping around in my
That's fine,
questions,
Anne
but
Marie.
I'm trying to follow.
You wanted to
great.
have a discussion.
Well,
We're having
no,
a
I
discussion.
did, and I
You
love
said
it.
you were
So
looking
now
forward to it.
you're challenging my
Yeah, so
ability.
now we're doing it, yeah.
My ability to keep up. Along those same lines of hybrid, people in person, what's
Yeah.
it like for the people in person? I think we noted last year that now certainly more than half of the sitting town meeting members have not been present pre-COVID when town meeting was really very different from what it is now.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we have in fact evolved because of technology and because of a number of reasons. So the question I'd already prepared says, now that we're back in person pretty much, some town meeting members are getting restless in person with the call the question, long lines to speak, repetitive comments. How would you encourage town meeting members to focus while still respecting everyone's right to speak and not be cut off by the call the question?
Is it my turn?
I don't think it
It is
I think
actually it's Mark's.
You went first last time.
I've got little stars
All right,
here,
all
and
right.
I'm not counting the.
Please.
Michael. I mean, we want to be fair to
I'm
one
not
another,
counting
right?
the rebuttal.
It's about
I-
fair.
I
Fairness
think-
is how you
Of
moderate town
course.
meetings.
I think this
so
one
I'll
is-
answer
is
first, and I'm
Mark.
sure Mike will have a comment. Emery, that's a really challenging question, a difficult question. Here's the thing, right? I believe the town meeting is the purest form of democracy. As Mike indicated, we've been in a representative town meeting for 99 years, 1926. It's the oldest form of democracy in New England. I fully support rigorous and robust debate, and I think town meeting members should be allowed to speak. I know we discussed the time limits. I would poll the town meeting members, the body, the legislative body, the town moderator serves in terms of the time limits. It's 3 minutes now, maybe it needs to be longer. It does become redundant, but people want to have their say in terms of town government. I think the way that Mike has done it and the way that I would sort of approach it is that
Mike
The other
Widmer,
Mike
excuse me,
Widmer.
not Mike Crowley, apologize, the current moderator, is to sort of remind folks that we're becoming somewhat redundant. But you know, it's democracy at its purest form, and people want to have an opportunity to have their say. So if there's redundancy, I'm okay with that. You need to make certain that the meeting moves forward. You want to ensure that folks aren't there at all hours of the night. And so I know people move the question and people want to speak, but it's the purest form of democracy. Sometimes it's not always perfect.
All right, thank you, Mike.
No, I agree with Mark. People do want to speak, and I would like to give people the benefit of being able to speak if they would like to. I would, as I think Mike Widmer does, remind people that, you know, if somebody has already expressed your viewpoint, please, you know, no need for you know, repetitive statements. But on the other hand, if we have long numbers of people in line and somebody calls the question, I will ask that person if they really want to call the question and end the discussion, because so many people are waiting to speak. And similarly, we had an incident at a recent town meeting where someone moved to suspend indefinitely a motion that was on the table. And there were a lot of people in line to discuss, you know, the merits of the proposal. And
Thank you.
all right.
You'll
Well,
have a
that's a
chance to get
non-debatable
back to it.
motion, and I agree that you want to ensure that people have an equal opportunity to speak. I mean, that's so vital, because as the moderator, the most important thing, what's fundamental to the moderator's role is to be fair and impartial, which means you moderate the meeting. I mean, we both have policy positions, but as a moderator, you have to be fair and impartial. That is fundamental to that role. And so that means everyone has to have an equal opportunity to speak.
Okay. And again, you're touching on, you're way ahead of me, this idea of being impartial. The moderator, I think, walks a fine line between being sort of above the fray and remaining completely neutral, but also really being down in the trenches, preparing the town meeting articles, meeting with people to create the town meeting and how the town meeting is going to flow, how everything is going to be delivered to people, et cetera. You have both served in high-profile committees, school committee, select board. You both have positions that are fairly well known in the community on various issues. Many times you agree, sometimes you don't. How do you propose now to transition into this neutral role and walk that fine line. And Mike, I think you're first.
Hey, thank you. So the moderator has to be neutral, a neutral party in town meeting. You do not want to steer debate and discussion either one way or another. That is not the job. So Mark and I obviously will have feelings about issues or viewpoints on issues that are before town meeting. It is not the job to express them. However, a certain amount of advocacy is necessary. The moderator has to be an advocate for town meeting, a well-functioning town meeting. The moderator has to be an advocate for well-functioning committees that the moderator appoints. These are all things that I believe in. That kind of advocacy is absolutely essential.
All right, thank you. Mark, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, look, I mean, I've said before, it needs to be fair and impartial, and as a member of the select board, I have extensive experience in leading meetings and chairing meetings, both when I was chair, a lot of public meetings, public forums, budget summits, so I believe I have the deep skills and ability to facilitate a meeting, and I'll bring those skills to the moderator role. And you do have to rise above it. It's fundamental to the role. You have to be fair and impartial. There's no debate on that matter at all, and you can't put your thumb on the scale. You can't advocate for a particular position even though you may be for it or against it. You have to ensure that all of the town meeting members have an opportunity to have equal say. And I think on major articles as well, one of the things that I will bring to bear is that to ensure that there are proponents and opponents, that both groups have an equal opportunity to speak beyond the 3 minutes that we currently give them. And so I think my skill in facilitating dozens and dozens of meetings over the years, I'll be able to bring that to bear to ensure that I can moderate in a both fair and balanced way.
Okay, did you want to add something? Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mike.
I also would add that I have chaired dozens and dozens of meetings over the years. And frankly, you know, as Mark says, it's absolutely essential to give everyone a chance to speak and voice their opinion, and that's essential to running a meeting. And so that's also a skill I bring to the moderator's role, and I
Okay. Let's go back to this idea of the 3-minute limit. That was instituted fairly recently, I think,
was.
by Mike Widmer.
There was a poll of town meeting members.
Exactly,
if you
I do remember that,
Right.
yes. And seems to be working pretty well. There's been some objections, so there are many people who support it. There are probably an equal number who say no, either there should be no limits or shorter limit or longer limit. What do you think about the speaking limit? And who's first? Mark, you are, right?
Well, I mean, I think it's up to town meeting. I think the moderator serves town meeting, the legislative body. Even though the moderator is part of the legislative body, I would poll town meeting members in terms of what they think. That's what Mike did. You know, folks have an opportunity to come back in line and speak again after others have spoken. Perhaps, I mean, town meeting time talks about perhaps you can go up to 5 or 6 or 7 minutes. That's a long time, particularly if there's a lot of folks that want to participate and you're there long hours of the night. You know, you want folks to want to be town meeting members. You don't want them to think as though we have dozens of nights of meeting. I would ask town meeting. I would ask the advisory group that I would appoint, and I would ask town meeting, the legislative body, because I think I'm there as a moderator to serve them. What do they believe in terms of time limits? And so poll them in terms of this matter. 3 minutes to me seems to work. Folks can get back in line. When it's a long line, it's challenging for them to get to speak again. So I would ask town meeting what they think about it.
All right, interesting. Mike?
Yeah, so I also believe in making this decision something for town meeting. And frankly, I've talked to dozens of town meeting members, and you know, people are a little bit all over the map. But I think generally there is a consensus that 3 minutes is about right. But I do think it is necessary to poll town meeting periodically about its preferences. And I absolutely would work with the Moderator's Advisory Committee that I've suggested creating to think about, you know, are there ways in which we can or even should experiment with that limit of 3 minutes for the benefit of town meeting.
Sure.
I want to make one distinction.
Go ahead.
There, in my 30 seconds here, I think there's situations, and we've seen this in the past, where there's a significant article and there's proponents and opponents. I think in that case, there's not a 3-minute limit. I think you need to give equal opportunity to both the proponents and opponents on a major article to present their point of view, not just town meeting members getting up. And so I would change that for that. Maybe that's 5 minutes, maybe that's 7 minutes, to ensure that those individuals, those groups of individuals that are for an article and against an article have an equal opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
That's
Go ahead.
actually something that's absolutely essential. I think we have seen town meetings in which, you will see select board members and sometimes town committee meeting members get multiple opportunities at the mic, whereas the proponents of citizens petitions or amendments, their time is limited. That's not fair and equitable, and that's something that we have to work on. That's something that the moderator can fix.
I think that's right.
You both make an interesting
I think that's
point
right.
there in that, does that go back to the preparation? Now, one can't always anticipate what's going to come forward, what kind of grassroots effort might come forward. But is there a more equitable way to give groups time,
Well,
as you're saying?
I think you need to meet with both groups, Anne Marie. I think on citizens petitions in particular, the petitioners and the ones that perhaps aren't against, you need to meet with them in terms of the time that they need and what they want to present. It all goes into the planning. Planning
Yes.
is so key to understanding what the scope is, what can be raised. If questions come up, you want to ensure that they can be answered. I mean, I think we've been pretty good about that, but there are times in which, you know this, both of you.
I think we all
When a
do.
question comes up, it's really challenging, well, who can answer that?
Right.
So I think it's critical, to the extent possible, to be as prepared as possible.
All right, good point. Yes, Mike?
I think procedurally, that's all good and necessary.
Yeah.
But I think procedurally too, the moderator has the ability to ensure that both select board members and town committee members who are speaking about an issue before town meeting, as well as say, for example, proponents of citizens petitions or amendments to articles before town meeting have equal time.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. Before, and I actually do want to get to amendments, but one quick observation here. I think Mike Widmer was very good about utilizing the technology of the so-called clickers. And when you talk about polling town meeting, is it enough to ask town meeting members when they're there using the clickers to do some kinds of surveys? Widmer has done that, I think, very successfully.
Yeah.
Is that enough
I
to
think
do
you
that
can
in
ask
the
questions.
moment?
I think you could poll them in advance, Anne Marie. I mean,
Is it my turn?
It is your turn, yes.
oh, sorry. I thought we were just having a
I-
discussion.
I'll just
well, we're
repeat what
sort
you
of
said,
having a
Mark.
conversation, but
He's going to
yes,
repeat what I
let him
said, then
go.
I'll just
Yeah.
agree. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry, Anne
Sorry,
Marie.
Anne Marie,
not at all,
I
it's
think
fine.
we apologize. I think we sort of thrown you off your back. We apologize. You wanted to have a discussion. We're having a
If
good
I get
discussion.
fired, just so you know,
the question
I'm
one more
blaming
time,
you guys.
Anne Marie, the
Go
question
ahead.
one more time.
Sure. Oh, the question is, I think Mike Widmer was very effective
yeah, okay.
at jumping onto the technology of those clickers
Yeah.
and using them for very quick surveys.
Yeah, so that's important, but one problem is we don't have all the town meeting members showing up at town meeting, and so I mean that's something that has to be worked on. But I think that we can utilize both surveys in advance or outside of town meeting that are sponsored by the moderator or the moderator and the moderator's advisory committee, as well as immediate polls at town meeting. We can use both of those forms of technology to assess where town meeting members are at with respect to a particular issue or process, and so we can work with both of those.
Okay, all right. You want to add
I mean,
anything,
I
Mark?
was going to say the same thing. I mean, I think it's important. Mike's right. People
Perfect,
don't
good.
show up. Not everyone's there. I mean, polling them on a question that perhaps they haven't thought about in advance. So letting them know what questions are there and polling town meetings in advance. I mean, you have an ability to email town meeting members. I think the other thing, I mean, the advisory group, both of us keep on talking about that, but I think the moderator can also attend caucus meetings and reach out to the community and to the different town meeting members and get as much input as possible. At the end of the day, the moderator, part of the legislative body, we are there to serve the legislative body. They don't serve us. We're there to serve them. We want to ensure that they can do their job, which is an important one. And so I would poll town meetings to the extent possible in advance at the meeting itself, and then perhaps through caucus meetings to understand what time limits should we have, what are the issues that are coming up. I think getting more input is so important.
Okay,
I can't agree more.
perfect. You've both mentioned people aren't showing up. I think
Yeah.
we all know now with the scroll on the screen of everybody's
Yeah.
names, which names are turning aqua and which aren't. We all know the people who routinely are not showing up.
Yeah.
Is there anything that the moderator can do about that? And Mike, you actually going first on this.
Oh, I thought it was Mark's turn.
No, I think it's my turn.
Is it his? Okay,
I think it's Mark's turn.
go ahead.
Well, two M's here, so whatever.
Whose
Mike,
turn
thank
is
you
it?
for that, being so gracious. That's a really interesting question, Anne Marie. We're not sort of teachers in a classroom. We're not parents of town meeting members to ask them why they're not attending. I mean, I think if there's ongoing absences, and there's a balance here. I'd want to understand, is there a reason why you can't attend? Your voice is important. Can you attend through, hopefully the select board agrees with, whomever is elected here, that we want to move forward in a hybrid way, to conduct it in a hybrid way. I'm sure we'll both strongly advocate for that. I would reach out to those individuals to have, ongoing absences in terms of, again, it's not up to us. They're precinct elected them. So it's not there to sort of take a tally of who isn't attending. So you want to be, in terms of the message, say, well, Anne Marie, I mean, I've noticed that you haven't been to a number of meetings. Is everything okay? Is there something we can do to support your efforts to attend in person? I would approach it in that way, but it's a difficult thing to.
Thank you.
You know,
Go ahead, Mike.
if a town committee member doesn't show up 3 times in a row, for 3 meetings in a row, by
on a committee.
bylaw,
Yeah.
by bylaw, they can be removed from the committee. I don't know that we need to go there yet. I suspect that we would dramatically improve participation and attendance at town meeting by moving to a hybrid format, by making it easier to participate in town meeting. But as Mark said, I think, the moderator can track attendance, and if we have chronic absence from town meeting, the moderator should reach out and ask those individuals, what's the issue? We'd prefer to have you here. Your voice is important, but if you can't participate, it's going to be a problem in the future. Would you like to step down and let somebody else take your place?
Thank you.
I'm not sure I'd go that far, but I think Mike's right in terms of reaching out. I mean, one of the things we did when I was a member of the select board, because this happened, not often, but it would happen on committees. Mike, you're right. That's the rule, is that we would reach out. We would decide who on the select board would reach out to the individual that was not attending these committee meetings. And we're blessed to have so many volunteers for these committees. And the chair would notify us, say, this person, XYZ individual, is not able to attend. Before we remove them after missing 3 meetings, we would reach out and say, is there something that's taking place, something going on within your sort of.
Perfect. All right,
yeah.
thank
And
you.
I actually think that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think removing somebody is an absolute last resort, and the moderator has no power to remove
That's right.
anyone
No.
in
No.
any
The
case.
electorate, I mean, the individuals in their particular precinct voted for them, yeah.
All right, let's get back sort of to the nitty-gritty
Yes.
stuff of preparation for town meeting and how town meeting runs and the articles and whatnot. I think recently we seem to be seeing more and more amendments to articles. I never remember so many amendments as to some of the issues that we've seen in the last 2 years. Some of these amendments are absolutely necessary, housekeeping, grammar, placement within a bylaw or whatever, and that's fine, and they go very quickly. Others are much more substantive. How much is too much? How would you guide folks in their formation of amendments? And Mike, this is you.
All right. So if someone wants to make an amendment to an article that's before town meeting, that's their absolute right, either as a citizen who's not a member of town meeting or as a member of town meeting. And there are slightly different procedures for both. But it is important that whoever wants to make an amendment or bring a petition, well, we're talking about amendments. Whoever wants to bring an amendment, the moderator should be meeting with them, talking about the implications of their amendment, steering them to town council, and perhaps discussions with other town officials, if that would be helpful, if you think they're not understanding something. These are all things that the moderator can do, and I think the moderator absolutely has to work with anyone bringing an amendment.
Okay, Mark?
Well, I mean, I said before, it's the purest form of democracy. They have an absolute right to file an amendment, without question. And if they're not a town meeting member, to file a citizen's petition. And I would work with the person that's filing the amendment to ensure that it's an appropriate format, that it's been vetted by town council in terms of presenting it. But I would not discourage them from filing the amendment. I mean, again, it's their right. And I agree, Emery. I think there have been a lot of amendments. I think one of the things, frankly, that I've seen, particularly on zoning bylaws, it's confusing.
It's very confusing
The zoning
for people.
bylaw amendments, when we attended the last meeting, to me was confusing. So, I mean, I walked away thinking that there needs to be better preparation. You need to ensure that town meeting members are better prepared. I think it's the moderator's role to ensure that they understand them, because I was confused. And I'm trying to listen to the petitioner and the person filing the amendment. Perhaps there needs to be more of an airing on that, more public forums. Zoning bylaws, as we all know, are very complicated. Our zoning bylaws are complicated, so I think
Thank
the
you.
moderator has to work more diligently on that.
All right, thank you.
I
Go
will
ahead.
just say this, in terms of numbers of amendments. We have 3 amendments to the accessory dwelling unit article that's zoning bylaw changes that are before town meeting on March 3rd. And honestly, I find them all easy to understand. That's not speaking to whether I personally, as a town meeting member, would support them or not. But I find them easy to understand, and I don't find it a problem.
But let me pose a further question, though. At what point does the moderator say, look, if you had followed this issue within its committee, being planning board or school budget or community preservation funds, and addressed your issue there before the article even got to town meeting, is that not a better use of everybody's time?
I think that, well, I mean, is Mike
is it my
going or
turn?
Mike going?
I'm not doing turns on the rebuttal,
Okay,
so
so-
you guys can flip a
Oh,
But
coin.
no, you just
Is this-
spoke. Let me just, and you can go next,
All right.
please, Mike, with all due respect. I think that's fair, Anne Marie. I think it's important, Mike said this as well, I mean, to engage with the folks that filed the amendment. And I think we can do a little bit better job. I had said this at the league night on the ADU articles. In terms of the Q&As that come out there. More information, and hopefully town meeting members access this, not everyone will.
No.
But making certain, and with my background and experience knowing these issues, that they're as fully informed as they need to be. I think we can be more diligent on that through Q&As, but I think it's a fair point to say, should you have not attended the public forum, presented it to the planning board, if it's a planning board issue, it might be. But again, they have every right to file an amendment, and I think the moderator can serve a role whereby ensuring that town meeting members are more fully informed about it as well.
And I will say this too, and that's that one can spend all of the time attending those meetings and voicing a viewpoint and not being satisfied with the outcome. In which case, you do have the option to bring the issue to town meeting. And I say that's entirely appropriate. And I will also say that from the perspective of, I have brought a budget amendment to town meeting before, and I know, Mark, we were on different sides of this issue, but I was a part of the budget process as a member of this school committee, as a member of the warrant committee, preceding, and it's not an issue of whether I got my way or not. There are multiple people involved in the decision making, but town meeting is a last opportunity to get a hearing on an issue, and we should encourage it. Frankly, this is, as we know, our purest form of democracy.
Thank you.
I think on that, in terms of budget, you brought up budget, I think one of the things I've been sort of thinking about is that we pass our budget in 15 minutes, right? And we spend 2 hours on another article. I would look to have a more detailed presentation on the budgetary matters by department. You know, have either the subcommittee chairs of the warrant committee along with the department head, but not every line item, and not vote that night, because the most important thing we do in town is pass our operating budget. It drives the services that we deliver. And so one of the things I think, you know, if I'm elected moderator, I would bring to bear is
Your 30 seconds
more
are up.
detailed presentation on our budget. Yeah, thank you, Anne Marie.
If-
Yeah.
You're welcome.
If I,
We're not getting to 30 there, we're getting
Well,
it back here, right?
I have to, my boss
No,
is
and I
over there
appreciate
with
that.
her cards.
Yeah, if Joanna's doing a great job back here.
if I could add, Anne Marie, you know,
Sure.
as moderator, you know, I am very interested in my warrant committee, the warrant committee that I appoint, being more attuned to the need for public engagement. And public engagement on the budget is so important. We have so many people on both sides of the issue when we have overrides. We have so many people unhappy about town and school budgets. And frankly, they need to be engaged. They need to be engaged so that they understand. We have limited resources.
Okay, but how do you do it? We have budget summits.
Yeah.
The warrant committee's on television. They're open to the public. You cannot drag
You know,
people
the budget
there.
summits
How do you do it?
Budget summits were our idea when I was on the select board, and they're frankly, and I think you've attended some, Mike, and they're not as attended, you know, the attendance is pretty light. And even the warrant committee meetings that, you know, I chair, you know, I was on the select board, folks just don't have the time. That's why I said they need to get more information. What's the vehicle to get more information into the community on the most important thing we do in town, and that is our operating budget? Clearly, there's always going to be some separation and division. The warrant committee serves an advisory role. They don't prepare the budget. They just advise and recommend to town meeting. I think the responsibility of informing the residents of our community of the budget and getting out there is from the select board school committee, but also, I think, through more detailed presentation at town meeting. I think that's really the path that we need to move forward on.
All right, Mike?
So we need to have detailed presentations at town meeting, but by the time you get to town meeting, I think it's a little bit late for
Well,
a lot of the
yeah.
public engagement that we need.
Yeah.
And frankly, we do have to find ways to engage the public. And even if our budget summits are ill-attended, even if, you know, you have few people watching those warrant committee meetings, and believe me, I've seen so many of them. They're difficult to watch. We need to find ways to better engage the public. And I think one thing that the moderator can do is put out through a moderator's bulletin, a periodic newsletter, non-biased information, non-biased summary information about the issues that are coming before town meeting. And that includes the budget. The warrant committee does a beautiful, very lengthy warrant committee report.
Gorgeous.
And even the summary within that report is quite nice. But
Thank you.
we can do better for summarizing that information.
Thank you. Let me move to a little bit to the lighter side of town meeting.
Okay.
What I'm going to characterize as the lighter side of town meeting. And that is, town meeting, in addition to legislating, is an opportunity for people to come together and celebrate community. And
right.
so there was a time, and I think with COVID we kind of lost it, where town meeting was an opportunity to recognize achievements within the community. The schools recognized high achievement in athletics, academics, music, art. We recognized our citizens who had served for a long time on town meeting or who were retiring from a significant elected or appointed board. And I think that contributed to a positive feeling at town meeting and about the community. Should we do more to encourage that kind of appreciation? Would we bring back some of that? Would people be interested in
is it
doing
Mike?
that?
Okay, Mike, go ahead. Yeah.
So I absolutely appreciate having this kind of celebration at town meeting. I mean, celebrating people's achievements, including, you know, the length of service in town meeting, you know, all of the important achievements in the community. They're important. So I don't know what we did before 10 years ago, but I am a big believer in continuing to have and perhaps even looking at doing more of this kind of thing going forward. You know, it's something I would support.
Okay, Mark?
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we did do a lot more of that in earlier years, and when I was on the select board, we tried to recognize, when there were achievements in sports and cultural achievements, to recognize them, but that's a small group that's tuning in for that. So I think you need to do more at town meeting, and I'll just use this question, Emery, to also say that I think under Article 1, there needs to be more report outs. I would ask the select board to report out on the issues that they're dealing with. I would have report outs on some of the more contentious issues that we discussed, like civil service, have the chief of police discuss how that's
What's the
going.
update? Yeah. I
I know town meeting members, I say you're going to extend the length of this meeting, but what other form can we possibly use when we have 288 representatives there? So under Article 1, I'd have more report outs in terms from the various sort of substantive committees in town, particularly the select board, the executive branch, to report out on the work that they're doing. And I think the celebration, it does give a sense of community when you do that, when you celebrate, sports achievements or cultural achievements and academic achievements. And we used to do that a long time ago, and I think we need to bring that back.
That's
I
fun.
agree with you. Yes.
And so more report outs and also more opportunities for town meeting members to ask questions.
Okay.
Was that my beep?
That was
or
your
Mike's
time,
beep?
not
Yeah,
his.
that was my beep. Yeah, okay.
Lost
Thank you.
control of this.
Yeah, you're both doing a fantastic job.
All
by the
right.
way. Yeah, thank you.
Let me ask a broader question.
Yes.
What is your most and least favorite aspects of town meeting? As you run for an opportunity to manage town meeting from your experience, what did you love? What could be improved? And I think I'm starting with Mark.
Well, I mean, to me, I used to look forward so much to town meeting when I was on the select board, and then when I was just a town meeting member at Precinct 3 and then, eventually 8. It's the ability to sort of engage with the residents, fellow citizens and neighbors in a productive way in town government. I think the sense that I got is that here I am as a town meeting member, part of this legislative body, as a town meeting member at large, or was sitting in the seat, to engage in the government of our community. I just love that feeling. It's the purest form, one of the oldest forms of democracy. We both use the word purest form of democracy. So I do love that. I'm not certain there's anything about that I disliked. I mean, I think, at times it can get emotional, and I think rigorous and robust debate is important, but when it became personal, I didn't like that. And we haven't had many circumstances like that. Mm-hmm. People just get emotional. We're human beings, right? We're emotional beings. I think when that sort of came up and there were boos or cheers or insults that may have been hurled, that's really unpleasant.
Thank you. Mike?
So, I've always loved legislatures. I was a House intern in the U.S. House of Representatives. I was a Senate intern in the U.S. Senate, and frankly, before moving to the Northeast in Belmont, I was completely unaware of this unique institution.
It is unique to New England.
It's awesome,
Town
yeah.
Right,
meeting.
yeah, right.
Our town legislature, it's almost as big as the House of Representatives.
It is.
In Washington, D.C. And it's just so amazing to be a part of it. It's just, I love having an institution like this in our community. And in terms of least favorite things, deep contention and emotion, I don't like, but you do sometimes see it at town meeting, and I think it's the moderator's role to try to keep things civil and move beyond emotion, and we can do that.
Thank you.
The town meeting
Yes.
time talks about it's an opportunity for those governed to talk with those that govern them. So that's
Perfect.
that's what town meeting's about, and it is endemic to
You
this
mentioned
area.
town meeting time, and you have a copy of it. We can
Yeah,
hold it up
Mike
to
has
the
a
camera.
copy.
You
We
have a
both read
copy
it.
here.
This is the third edition. There is now a fourth edition.
Fourth
Yeah,
edition,
we
but
both
that's
have
the
read it.
Bible
Which is more expensive.
That is the Bible.
for Massachusetts town meeting.
it is.
Would you encourage town meeting members to,
I,
to
I,
get
it's
a copy and
expensive
read
to
it?
purchase it. I think Mike and I were talking before we began here that I think town meeting members at the very least need to understand different types of motions that are put forward to town meeting, what the votes are, what's debatable, what's not debatable. I mean, Mike Whitman did a wonderful job of reminding folks. I'm not certain all are fully informed about it. So I think there are aspects of town meeting time that we can provide to town meeting members, which I would do. In terms of purchasing the books, will they read the books? I mean, it's expensive. I would encourage them to purchase it, but I think there are parts of town meeting time, having read it now twice, that are so important to inform town meeting members, the legislative body, exactly how procedurally town meetings should move forward.
Well, perhaps we could get the town clerk to send out excerpts to our town meeting
Well, I
members.
think we would
maybe
do
when they
that,
get
right? I
elected.
mean, I think particularly on the motions, because what's debatable, what's not debatable, what's a
Yeah,
2/3 vote,
perfect.
what's a majority vote. It's in the article, it's in the warrant, but this really is very informative.
Mike?
So I am an absolute believer, and if you can afford to buy a copy of this, and frankly, until a few weeks ago, when this was then the latest edition, it was $35. I would advise that town meeting members get a copy. And, the new price is $70. And
stop.
with shipping
Edition
involved,
4, yeah.
Oh, dear. Maybe we should buy in bulk.
So this, I do think it's important to have access to our manual of parliamentary procedure, and if elected, the moderator doesn't make very much. There's a very small
$200.
stipend.
You could use
I
some of
think
that?
It's 450, isn't it?
200. I thought it's
Did
200.
Well,
we
in any
increase it?
case,
I think
I-
it's still 200.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
Yeah.
Whatever it is,
Might double
I
the
will, I
salary
will
for us.
donate my stipend to purchase however many copies of this, the
Perfect.
new edition, not this
Yeah,
one.
I do
that we can
wonder
afford,
whether,
and donate them to the library.
Just briefly, I do wonder, something we should think about, whether it could be within our budget to provide that. Because again, it's such an important part of our town government, the legislative body, power of the purse, passes our laws. Perhaps not all will read it, but there are aspects of the book that they should read, that we would purchase that for all of them, at $35 per point, which is expensive. It get up there,
Worth exploring
It is
some way to get the information
Yeah,
out.
I
to
think
town
we need
meeting
to give them
members.
more information than they currently have, without question.
That would be good.
Absolutely. And there is a great deal that, as Mark said, that the moderator can do to distill some of this, some of the
Yeah.
more important aspects of this for town meeting members
Okay.
as well.
We're rolling down to the end of our time. I have one question left.
Yeah.
And I'm going to preface it by saying one of the things I admired about Mike Widmer as a moderator is his sense of humor. He could see, in the most contentious situation, he could still see some humor in it. And I think that was a good thing for town meeting and often helped diffuse some tensions in town meeting. So my question to you, both gentlemen, and I've lost track of who goes first.
Mike can go.
Do you have a sense of humor?
Well, I do have a sense of humor. I think all you have to do is ask my wife if you can find her. And frankly, having a sense of humor is so important to moving around disagreements. And frankly, town meeting can get contentious, and having a moderator who has a sense of humor would be deeply helpful. There's just no doubt about that.
Yeah, I absolutely
Mark?
do. I mean, if you watched any of the select board meetings I participated in particular, I was the chair. There are times when things got somewhat tense, and I would bring some humor to bear. I mean, we're not going to stand up there and tell jokes, but I mean, I
No.
think there has to be some lightheartedness to proceeding the town meeting. The issues are important, but I think we need to respect one another and do it in a sense of collegiality, and bringing some humor to the table helps to
Yes.
break through the tension.
Well, gentlemen, this has been very interesting.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you so much for your freewheeling discussion. I think the viewers are going to appreciate it. I certainly appreciated it. And we covered everything that I had in mind for us this afternoon. So thank you so much.
You're welcome.
To our viewers, this has been the Moderator Debate.
Nice job.
Michael Crowley, Mark Paolillo on the ballot for the role of moderator. Make sure you go out and vote on April 1st. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Marie.